Hi, hello everyone. This is Danny, creator of Skin Harmonics, and I have invented the very first Medi-Holistic resurfacing process for skin. And today I'm going to talk about product absorption. Now, there's a lot to unpack around this topic, and I'm going to just start from the very beginning. So, the most important thing to understand about product absorption is that our dermis and our epidermis want very different things. And I think this is sort of the biggest thing that I want to explain. Now, many of you guys who know me know that my whole thing is all about, getting the word out about how overexfoliation and trauma-based healing has a net loss effect on our skin. And so that's my first thing that I wanted to talk about, was how the old way of getting products to absorb into our skin was to basically just lower the pH. And this was accomplished by using glycolic, lactic, salicylic acids, sodium hydroxide, which is lye, and even sodium bicarbonate, which is baking soda. So those are all ways that was how, years ago, the only way that formulators could actually get skincare ingredients into our skin was to lower the pH. And of course, this went very much in line with what they discovered in the 30s about how if we want to penetrate the skin, then we have to just dissolve it to get it to make new skin cells. And so this is a really outdated approach, and it's a very old school way of approaching skincare, because what happens is that when our skin has to endure, over exfoliation and basically the depletion of our dermal layer due to this excessive workload, to this deeper dermal layer, it thins at a faster rate. So I'm going to back up and just describe a little bit more. So a really good way of thinking about our skin that's really simple to convey is that our dermal layer is thick. And think of that like cake. And the frosting that's thinner, much thinner, is on top, and that's our epidermis. Now, our cake layer, I'll call it, is responsible for manufacturing the frosting, our epidermal layer. And so by damaging our epidermis, we can force the reproduction and the replacement of the epidermis by this cake layer, by basically forcing it to replace it by removing or harming that top layer. And so that's this old school way of thinking about how we have to penetrate products and penetrate acid to increase this resurfacing. And so, understanding that our dermal layer and our epidermal layer wants very, very, very different things. So I'm going to explain that next. So it turns out that our dermal layer, our cake layer, it only wants food. It wants food, and it wants to be left well alone. It doesn't need water. It doesn't need antioxidants. It needs to be left alone, and it wants food. And so the best way to deliver this food is liposomal delivery. Now, this is a special lipid from lecithin granules, and this is how we can actually penetrate our skin without traumatizing it and without lowering the pH of acids. We can wrap this bioavailable form of vitamin A into liposomal delivery, phosphatidylcholine, and then it has the ability to go all the way through our epidermis and be released into our dermal layer, and it's recognized as food, not as trauma, not as acids. And so that's a real big game changer, because now with this natural liposomal delivery, we can get deep absorption, deep metabolization of nutrients rather than acids. So hold on to that bit of information. And so next, I want to talk about our epidermis, this frosting layer that's much thinner, much, much thinner. It does basically all it wants is water, antioxidants, and to be moist. And it requires oil in order to trap water content in our skin. Think of this frosting layer, this epidermal layer, as a wicking layer. The more moist it can be, it can actually pull in and magnify this penetration of this liposomal delivery nutrients. And that's pretty important because a lot of times people are just putting all sorts of ingredients into moisturizers, into serums. And the truth is, if our skin isn't optimally hydrated, it's not going to penetrate. A lot of these ingredients are just sitting superficial on our skin and completely getting in the way. They're irritating, or they're completely useless. They're a complete waste on our skin. And so understanding that the dermal layer doesn't want water, it doesn't want anything else but food and to be left alone. And then this layer above it, the epidermis, it really wants water. It wants to be saturated with water. It loves antioxidants, and it requires oil to trap any water in our skin. And of course, the dermal nutrients can pass right through a really optimized epidermal layer, and it just gets wicked in. Those nutrients just get wicked down into our deeper dermal layer where they can be used. And so I tried to make that somewhat understandable, because there's so much information about how all these products, like, you want them to go into the skin, but at the same time, if you're just penetrating acids and corrosives, it's actually not a good thing at all. Like microneedling, microdermabrasion, all of these ways that are supposedly, increasing product absorption. Well, our dermal layer and our epidermis is taking in the wrong things. So we're taking our skin down a less than ideal road, basically. And so that's kind of how product absorption works, and why we need to be very particular about what and how we're getting things into our skin, because we don't want to be penetrating the wrong things into our skin. And at the same time, we really want to get the right things in to our skin. And I'll leave you guys with this one little detail. Oftentimes people put a lot of product on their skin and they think that it's being absorbed and it's really going in, and either a lot of it is sitting superficial, or number two, it's evaporating. Without that layer of oil over it, a lot of products just evaporate out of our skin. And part of understanding that is knowing that a lipid-rich moisturizer, the molecular size of oil is so large that it's never going to penetrate into our skin, and it's not supposed to, and we don't want it to. Remember, our dermal layer doesn't want oil. We just need that nice melding, that the first few layers of our epidermis, very, very superficially, is where that oil needs to be absorbed, so it melds in and traps in all of the water underneath. Now, the one other exception to this, and I think I'm almost out of time, I'm got somebody coming here in a minute, is that essential oils do penetrate through our skin. The molecular weight of essential oils is so minute that they go all the way through our dermis and into our bloodstream, actually. So I think this will be the final thing I leave you guys with, is that essential oils for our face are not good. I know nobody really wants to hear that. There's a small handful of essential oils that in the right amounts are good for our skin, but most of them, all of the citrus, lavender, tea tree, so many of them are just drying out our skin, even if they're in a base oil, because essential oils have that astringent value, and they will go all the way through our skin and kind of mess up oil production as well. So I hope that explains a little bit about the nuances around product absorption, because understanding that will help us all make better choices about, and be more intentional and just more aware about what we're putting in our skin, why, and how we can be the most efficient about getting the right ingredients into the right layers of our skin. Okay. All right. Thanks, you guys. And I will talk to you guys next time. Let's see.